How'd you like our song?
It's a little on the dark side, but you know, that's cool.
Hello!
Bill and Ted Face the Music. The movie that is most adequate. Everyone has waited 25 years for the release of the prequel, the Bill and Ted prequel. The first two are so unbelievably iconic that they kind of started a whole genre of not just movies but characters that are very much based on these two guys. Is so hard to explain, but everyone remembers and loves Bill and Ted for many different reasons. I mean, you may have even not watched those movies for such a long time, like myself, but still remember them being just nostalgic beauty. You know, I spent today in the kind of run up to watching Bill and Ted Face the Music. I sat down and watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. They are exactly what I remember them being, just not as iconic as what I remember them being. They're great movies. They're really good. They're really good fun. They're really silly and stupid, but I think as an adult, when you actually sit down and watch these movies, you realise there's a lot of things wrong with it, but there's more things right with them than what that kind of outweighs them, if that makes any sense. But that, like I say, it's the iconic nature of these movies that make you love them despite the kind of silly flaws that are in them. A lot of those silly flaws are all down to time travel, which we're not going to get into because time travel is not even a thing, so you can't really argue any of that. But just a lot of it doesn't make sense, but they kind of push the story forward anyway, and it's so funny and, you know, adventurous that you kind of get past all of that and you can get to the end of that story. So then we wait 25 years to get this prequel. I think the anticipation and the fact that I've spent all day watching Bill and Ted has kind of muddied my enjoyment of this movie. You know, it was fine. It was... I don't like it when they wait so long to do sequels. If iconic sequels from like the 80s and the 90s, if they wait until now to do the sequel, I think they should just kind of leave it in the past. They're only really doing it for money and, you know, to kind of get new fans on board. I understand that. I completely understand why they're doing it. And it is, you know, there's nothing stopping them doing it. But they don't really need to do it. Even if they don't do a sequel, they can kind of do a kind of reboot as such. You know, stick to the same universe and the same kind of story, but just use different characters, which is kind of what this movie tries to do. But at the same time, it kind of fails to do that. I'm going to go through the story really quickly. If you haven't watched Bill and Ted 1 and 2, basically someone comes back from the future and tells them that they all want to be rock stars, and it is their music that unites the whole universe and makes everyone have this shared kind of love for each other through their music, even though at the beginning of the first movie they can't even play instruments. So they go through all these weird, wacky adventures going through time and space and, you know, eventually becoming these rock stars. And it kind of leaves it at the end of the second movie that they are these big iconic rock stars that have united the whole world and, unbeknownst to them, the whole kind of universe. Fast forward 25 years and it is the older versions of these characters. I'm not going to speak about the actors because I'm not going to be able to remember all of their names because there's so many characters in these. Obviously I remember Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. They are the main two, but everyone else that kind of helps with this whole story, I'm not going to remember any of the actors' names. So I'm just going to stick to the characters, so just try and keep up. Bill and Ted are now 25 years older. They have their wives that they met in the first movie from, you know, 12th century England or whatever it was. They have their children who met at the end of the second movie, even though they were quite clearly boys, but they've retconned that to make them girls. But obviously, they were just babies at the time, so you can kind of sweep that under the carpet, and there's no issue there whatsoever. They still haven't found that song that unites the universe. You know, the band has kind of split up. They're still friends, but the rest of the kind of group that they formed has split up. They have not written that iconic song that has united everyone. They don't know what that song is, and they feel like time is running out. Ted even at one point kind of just wants to pack it all in. Then all of a sudden, someone comes back from the future. It is the daughter of the Rufus from the first two movies, because the actor that plays Rufus is dead. Rest in peace. And she basically says, well, you've got until 7:30 tonight to find this song, otherwise the whole universe is going to implode. It's a big, big leap from the last movie, where we was under the assumption that they had saved the universe, but obviously they needed a new story for this one. So yeah, the universe is basically going to implode if they don't find this song by 7:30. And then it all just kind of, you know, they jump in the phone box, they're going through time, they're going forward in time to try and meet themselves to get the song that they wrote to come back, but their future selves don't have the song. But that kind of negates it, because if their future selves don't have the song, then they wouldn't be there to ask about it, because the universe would have imploded. This is what I mean about the time travel. It's very weird. They do kind of give a brief explanation as to why it is. It's something about space and time where everything and nothing is possible at the same time. So they kind of work their way around that, but it's all very confusing. But they do this to try and find a song, and all whilst they're doing that, their daughters are going back through time to find, you know, the greatest musicians in history to form a band. You know, Jimi Hendrix, Mozart, Louis Armstrong. There's loads of others as well, but they kind of culminate at the end, whilst the whole universe is at that imploding moment. You know, people popping through time and ending up in different places in time and different space. It's all very confusing, but not confusing at the same time. And then all of a sudden they play the greatest song ever. And do you know what? That song at the end that they play is pretty good. You know, I could listen to that on loop for a little while. So that's the story. It's all very chaotic. There's a lot going on, and it feels like it feels like it's trying to push itself over that finish line. You know, it's trying to force itself to get to the point that it needs to get to, which is a song, but the rest of it is kind of filler. The filler is fine enough, but they just feel like separate skits that aren't as funny as the original. It's like people doing a parody of Bill and Ted. It's all very strange. It's the same actors, a lot older, so obviously they can't have that exact same energy that they did 25 years ago. But I don't know, something just wasn't right. I can't put my finger on what was wrong with this movie specifically. Like I say, a lot of it was chaotic, and a lot of it didn't really make any sense. But some bits of it were funny, but not funny enough to really make you enjoy this movie without sort of having to just push through it, which is what I felt like I was doing at times. I felt like I was just pushing through this movie just to get to the end, just to see what happened. And I can't say whether that's just burnout from watching the first two, or whether this movie just isn't as good as what it could have been and what it should have been, and should they have left it alone? I say yes, but it's, you know, it's great for Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter to come back to these iconic characters and try and tell a fresh story, but that fresh story just wasn't quite good enough for me, and it just, yeah, like I say, it just kind of, it pushed through to the end that was pretty good at the end, but then, you know, the rest of it kind of muddies that right at the end. There's a lot of funny moments. I'm going to say that. There's a lot of funny moments in this movie. The standout for me, apart from the Death character, the guy that plays Death is incredible. He was incredible in number 2. He's incredible in this. He's such a great character. But the standout for me in this was the robot. They sent a robot back from the future because they decided that maybe it wasn't the song that saved the universe, but the death of Bill and Ted. So they sent this robot back to kill them. And at first he's very menacing. He doesn't look menacing. He kind of looks like a Mewtwo robot. Mewtwo from Pokemon. But then he turns up and he starts zapping lasers and he's killing separate members of the Bill and Ted family and friends. And he seems quite menacing. And then he starts talking towards the end because he has this kind of meltdown. And he all of a sudden becomes a completely different character and a much more interesting character. One which I wanted to see a lot more of by the end. But what was it? Derek McCoy. He just kept saying that my name is Derek McCoy. And it's almost like it was a surprise to him as it was everyone else. But just the way that he delivered those lines. It's the guy that plays Victor Zsasz in Gotham. I love that guy. He's such a good actor. And he's really good. All of a sudden, he's just a completely different character. And it kind of makes the movie a whole different kind of movie. And like I say, a lot more of him would have really benefited me because that was just such a great character. It was so funny. Just some of the lines that he delivered. But yeah, this movie, all in all, the acting's fine. The jokes are fine. The story is kind of muddy, but it's fine enough. But all of that put together does not make a good movie. It was just fine. It was adequate. It wasn't excellent. It should have been excellent, but it wasn't. And it was just fine. It's good enough to watch. Go and watch it, but don't expect a lot. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to give me a like and maybe subscribe to my channel. I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.